visualizations. Now let's look at some very common visualizations that we have been using, right? Which you would have already used. So that's the bar graph and the line chart. Okay, so there are different options for bar chart. You can see the first entire row is full of bar charts. What is the difference? A stacked bar chart is basically one on top of the other. Okay, and we're going to talk a bit more about stacked bar charts. I think towards the end of the session, I have this really interesting thing to show you guys if we have time. But stacked bar chart is one where you can, I'm not a big fan of stacked bar charts. By the way, I try to use clustered bar charts. There's also 100% stacked bar chart. What is a 100% stacked bar chart? All bars will eventually have the same size, and basically it will have like a composition of the different categories within it. But this will, eventually distort the sizes a bit. Okay, I'm going to give you an exact example of how this is going to distort the size towards the end. But again, stacked bar charts can distort the sizes. So for example, if I use this simple example, okay, let me add some values to this stacked bar chart and I can explain a bit better. So I'm going to use the fields from sales. I'm going to probably use only one metric, which is numbered, ordered revenue. And I'm going to use a couple of dimensions, which is brand and category. So now you can see within a brand, you can see the values for different categories. Okay. Now this is a stacked bar chart. Now you see the problem that I'm having here. You see the line, or this line point or the separator is at almost exactly the same position in both, but this value is 471 million and this value is 427 million. The difference in millions, but you don't see that difference here. Why? Because it is showing as overall percentage in 100. What is the percentage, right? This is like 50 percentage. So all the, even if you had this entire bar had like total value was 200 and this bar had a total value of 2, you would see at 50% this would be 100 and this would be 1. Do you understand what I'm trying to say here? It's a composition showing within a single bar, which means you cannot compare the sizes between the different bars over here, which is very much distorting it. So, unless in specific use cases where you need to use a stacked bar chart, it may not be good to use this representation, right? So again, I'm going to get rid of the stacked bar chart now. But I can use a simple clustered bar chart. It can be horizontal or vertical, right? When it's horizontal, it's called bar. When it's vertical, it's said column. That's some Microsoft Power BI terminology. Okay. I'm going to keep it the same size as the one above. And now I can use a few, maybe brand, category. Okay, it's getting added separately. Let me select this visual and then add brand, category. And let me also add a metric, because otherwise the chart is not going to show up. Ordered units. So now I can see for the different brand and the different categories, what are the different metrics that are showing up for me. Okay. If I use focus mode, I can see it like this. Okay. So as simple as this, you select a chart that you want to show and what are the different visuals you want to see, and then basically it will give you those options. Okay. Now, one thing is, since somebody asked about Tableau, one difference between Tableau and Power BI is when you select the different dimensions and metrics, Tableau gives you a set of recommended charts. When you go to the Show Me panel at the right, it gives you a set of recommended charts, which ones are recommended. I haven't seen a similar feature in Power BI yet. I don't know if it's there in the latest version, but I haven't seen one similar. So just calling that out, in case you're able to relate. The Tableau folks will be able to relate. If you're not able to relate, it's fine. That's totally fine. Okay, now there are different options. So when it comes to a bar chart, the options are a bit more different. You see x-axis, y-axis, you can do different customizations, right? Let me look at all of this options. Like, style can show title only. Okay, it has only that option right now. I think let me look at the options. Okay, the x-axis has a lot of these values, right? 0 million to 1 million. So let's see if I can customize that, right? So I have this option here where the scale type is linear and logarithmic scale, but normally in normal use cases, you wouldn't have to change that. But you can see the start and end over here. Right now, the start and end is automatically based on the values that are present. But if I wanted to start from 0.3 million, how would I do that? See, now I did start from 0.3 million and then stopped at automatically, that is the largest value will be the automatically by default the largest one on the scale. But if I want to stop it at maybe a target line, okay, which is like 10 million. Now you see everything became smaller. The scale just changed. So you can change the scale, right? And then based on the values, it will show. Okay. One more thing that you can do, very interesting stuff, is in the analytics pane. Okay, is something called as analytics pane. If I have a target of maybe 0.5 million, that's my target. I want to see which ones crossed my target. In the analytics pane, I can add a constant line. Okay, constant line can be, at a particular value I add a line. What is that value? Let me say, for example, 0.5 million, right? So 500, I just wait for it till a line shows up. Now you can see a line showed up at 0.5 million. Okay, and that line I can increase the transparency or decrease it to show it like darker, and I can change the color maybe to a darker blue. Okay, and I don't want to use a dashed one, I can use a dotted one, or I can use a solid one, right? And I can change the, the position. Should it be behind or should it be in front? All of that details. If I add a label, it also adds a label which says, 500,000. And then again, you get a lot of options for, this is all for the label. See how much customization you can do even for that label, how much you want to change it, right? You want to see the name and value. If I show name and value, it's like constant line and blah, blah, blah. And what is that name? That name is the name over here, which I can change, right? So I can change the name to maybe target units. Now it will show target units 500,000. Okay. And this is the international numeric format, 500,000. You don't say 5 lakhs to a client that's based in the US, and he wouldn't understand 5 lakhs. So he would, you have to use common terminology that will make sense for him. So that's just images that you should use. But yeah, these are some of the options that you can use to, from the analytics pane. You can also add a minimum line, which is based on the existing minimum value. So you can see this is the least value. So now you have a minimum line. And you can also add, okay, I'm going to cross this out. I don't want a minimum line. I can add a maximum line, which is the maximum value right now. So you see how you can use the analytics pane to add all of these custom lines, average, median, percentile, all of this. Yeah. And it's all customizable. You can change the color, adjust the font and everything. A lot of customization possible. Yeah. So that's the bar chart, clustered bar chart, basic one. Very interesting feature here, data colors. You can change the colors for each of the bars to show. For example, if you were doing it for Amazon, okay, what I would do is Apple. Yeah. So for example, I'll take Google. Yeah. I think Google as a good example. Thank you, Nikhil. Google has those 2 to 3 colors in its logo, right? I can use the exact same colors in the dashboard that I'm building for Google. And I'll have to be very lucky if I'm building a dashboard for Google, by the way. They have their own people doing that. So just a random example though. You can use as exact same colors within the bars, and it will give a branded feel to that dashboard that you're showing the data for that brand. And that's how brands work, right? They have colors that actually represent what they stand for. Some brands even have a meaning for why they use that particular color, because that color symbolizes something. So you can keep something similar in dashboard also by adding that branded element, by including the images also, right? You can also include some of those images, and basically like you can even insert images. I would expect you to explore this sometime later. You can insert shapes, images, text boxes. Some really cool stuff that you can do is you can design a background for Power BI in a different tool. Like for example, some people use Figma, some people use PowerPoint. PowerPoint is a very powerful design tool, by the way. I don't know Photoshop and any of the other stuff, but I can create really nice looking backgrounds in PowerPoint. And that's something you can learn yourself as well. But you can use some of those backgrounds, import it into here. That's how a lot of really nice visualizations are created. They're just not created within using this single Power BI. They're creating, some other additional tools that are used for background images or background layouts and stuff like that. Yeah. You can change the colors. So like I said, if you want to keep the branding intact, you may want to use some of the branding colors. So if I use couple of these colors, and now you can see all the color options that I'm getting here is based on the theme that I used, which was that, the storm theme. So it's always by default like that. That's one cool thing. You can change the colors to basically show on the basis of, what kind of data you have, and a lot of other options, I think, which we already covered some of it, right? This is very good option here called data labels, and this is much recommended. Sometimes, you need to label your data, and maybe, you can even sometimes in some charts, you can avoid the accesses completely and use some labels, because only the top value and the bottom value matters for the client. Then you don't show the entire values, you only show for the top and the bottom, right? That's why I said, ask the questions first, ask the right questions. What do people want to visualize? And then create your charts. So if I turn on the data labels, you see how the labels are showing now for each of the values. The exact value for each of these is now showing up, okay? And I want to change the color in which it is showing to probably a green, a blue, which looks like this, okay? So it's showing in that particular blue. The units that it's showing right now, it's in million. Why? It is automatically defined. But if you want to show in thousands, it will show 940,000 or whatever, right? If you want to show it in billions, it will show, it's all 0 billions, because it's like 0.000 something billions, right? So maybe thousands is a better way to show it based on what data it is. And then decimal places, if you want to include any decimal places. The position is, right now it's automatic, but you want to show it on the inside end and not on the outside end. But when you're showing inside, you see the color is very similar to the color that's already there. You may want to use some different color. So if I change the color to maybe white, now you see all the whites are visible, because dark white against these dark backgrounds doesn't look good. All of these are design principles, guys. How you can, it's very important that people are able to read what is there in your dashboard. If you included something and it's not readable, it's very bad, right? And choice of colors gets better with time. So try exploring with different colors, take feedback from people, which one works, and stuff like that. And there are these options. Now, one more thing I want to show you in labels. Position. Okay, when we go to the pie chart, I think there's one more custom option for label. Let's look into that one. So this is my bar chart. Now I'm going to create a pie chart. Okay, so line is also very simple. I can show you very quickly. If I click on a line chart, and if I select, for example, in a line, it's always good to show trend data, right? Like time against time. If you want to see something, that's always best. So where would I have the date? Oh, there you go. In the date hierarchy, let me choose, for example, month. So by month, I want to see what is my shipped revenue. Okay, so I selected shipped revenue by month, and I'm getting this data, shipped revenue by month. And if I make this larger, I can see it looks like this. Some months it is absolutely, I think maybe, no, it's not 0, but it is showing like this. So now you see the problem. It looks like it is 0, but it's not actually 0. It's in millions. Okay, how do I change that? The one way to change that is actually go to the axis. So this is the y-axis that we are talking about, and in y-axis the start should be 0. Now you see, if I change the start to 0, now this is how it looks. So the difficult part becomes that if it is 0, then you're not able to see a lot of differentiation. And again, you wouldn't probably look at overall shipped revenue by month. You may look at some particular shipped revenue by month. Okay, so let's see how can I make more meaningful chart like this. I don't want to look at overall shipped revenue. I want to look at shipped revenue by a particular brand. Okay, so I'm going to go back to the report, keep that chart as it is for now. Okay, I'm going to keep it to the bottom. I want to see for different brands how the shipped revenue trend looks like. Okay, so something really cool that I can use is a slicer. Okay, a slicer is basically it works similar to a filter, but this is for the front end, and the front end means it will be accessible to the people who are using this dashboard, not just the people who are creating this dashboard. Okay, so let's I'll show you that very quickly. So I'm going to click on slicer. A slicer came up. Keep this very small. And I'm going to add one dimension to this, which is brand. Okay, so in product, I selected brand, and this slicer basically gives me like a checklist. This is like a selection option. Okay, now I don't want to see all of this like this. Don't want to see it in a list. I want to add a drop down. So okay, let me make this larger. If I click on that option, okay, it doesn't show in the focus mode. If I click on this option here, I can choose the drop down. Okay, now the drop down makes it a bit more, concise. So I can make this smaller. And how does this work now? So let me get into focus mode. If I click on the drop down, I see all the options here. Okay. Now I can do multi-select. I want to see, okay, I can do only single select right now. What if I wanted to select multiple ones in this? Like at a time, I want to see B1 and B2 data. Okay. By the way, when I select B2, notice that all the tables are now showing only values for B2. Okay. Brand B2 only. Everything is showing only for that particular value. Okay. Now I want to change this to have multiple selections. So I go to the format pane, selection controls, and there is something here which is multi-select with control is on. So if I keep clicking the control icon, so I'm going to use control to click. So I keep pressing control on my keyboard and then select this. Now multiple ones are getting selected. Okay. There's also an option where I can have a select all option. So if I enable the select all option, I can have a select all option where I click on it and everything gets selected. Okay. I can deselect also by clicking on that same. Okay, so this is where the whole self-service BI works, where people can customize based on different customization. So for example, I'm creating one more. I just did a Control C Control V, which is a copy paste, and I copy pasted this to create one more, and I'm going to add this over here as well. This one I am going to add a different field. I'm not going to use brand. Okay, I'm going to use category. How I can do it? One way to swap it is, drag and drop category to this fields over here. Okay, it's going to replace it. So it just replaced brand to category. Now, if I select the drop down, I have all the categories in here. And there's a lot of options of customization that you can do for the slicers also, where you can have a slicer header on or off. You can have the items, font color should be, for example, blue. Now you see the items will have the font color, which is blue. All of that customization is possible. Let me select it again, go back to format, and it has all of these options, right? In selection controls, there's also something called single select. If I turn that on, I'll be able to only select single. Okay. So yeah, that is those are some options that I can do to select a maybe a particular category or a particular brand. So if I choose for example only brand one, okay, let me deselect all, select only brand one and show only category one. Now you see how this is changing, right? The scale is changing based on how the brand and category got selected. But even right now, since most of my values are in millions, it doesn't make sense to have a 0 as the start, because now I can't even see the trend properly clearly, right? So I'm going to go back to this chart, and on the y-axis, I'm going to change the scale to be set as auto. So now it is automatically set up based on so this is the best configuration by default. However, if there is a set of values that you want to start from, you can change it back. But 0 is not a good option here because it's not showing the actual trends. Okay. But yeah, this is how it works. Now, if I wanted to see a trend across the entire days, not just the months, how would I do that? I'll go back to the values over here. And there's month right now over here. If I choose the day and replace the month with day. So when I add this, you see, since this is a hierarchy, it's adding it below it. So I can remove the month from here and I get just the day. So now this is how it looks like by day. And it looks like a weird chart, by the way, because that's the data, how it is actually. Because on one particular date, it is, dropping down to a very low value. That's why it is showing up like this. Okay. Which date is this? So this data point here, okay, this is again giving me a good example for this data, right? This data point is over here is what you would, what outlier. Yes, honey. So that's what you call an outlier. Because of this single outlier, the entire line looks like a straight line. However, it's not a straight line. There is some kind of trend here. So how can I exclude this value, right? Now this seems to be on the 31st. So let me go to the visuals, and here I can see there is something called as filtering. If I select all and remove the 31st, Now you see the 31st is removed. Now see how much variation is happening between the 1st to 30th, right? And because of that one outlier value, it was all showing to be like a straight line. And now you just removed that outlier value. So this is something else here, which is the filters for any chart that you have selected. Okay, you will see the filters pane here. Okay, where you can change the filters for any of the metrics and dimensions that you have used. Okay, so let me go back and select all here. Select all, showing all the data. How can I apply filters for this, ordered units by brand and category? I don't want to show all the brands. I don't want to show B5 for some random reason. My client has just asked me, B5 is a brand I don't want to focus on. I don't want to see that brand at all. How do I change that? So in this filter, I select this filter. There's something called as basic filter. What I would do is select all and then just unselect B5. So now B5 will stop showing up in that chart because I changed the filter. So this filter is the backend filter. What is a backend filter? This is the filter that only the developer will be able to see. The dashboard creator will be able to see. Once you deploy this and share the dashboard with the client will not be able to change to show B5, to show up B5. If you have to enable the client to show, then this is the option that you would use the client to be able to show, right? And even in this one particularly, maybe I don't want to show the B5 one. So I am going to, unselect B5 from there as well. Okay. So now the client will only be able to select from B1 to B4, right? So this filter will basically filter it out before, publishing that dashboard, so that the client will not be able to see what has been filtered out. So that is like a backend, and you should always inform the client that at the backend, I have done these filters, and probably they would have asked you to do those filters. But these slicers also work just like the filter. You can select which ones to show, which ones to not show, but this is for the front end. Okay. So that's the difference between the front end and the